breaking. Former President Donald Trump has been found guilty of falsifying business records. The jury has found former US President Donald Trump guilty of falsifying business records to conceal a hush money payment made to former porn star Stormy Daniels. He does now become the first former president to be convicted of a crime. Now, this is for the first count of the 34 charges in total. There are more verdicts to come. I will just reiterate what we are seeing now. It is historic, this. Breaking news, Donald Trump has been found guilty in his hush money trial. The former president faced 34 felony counts of falsifying business records to cover up a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels. Mr. Trump pleaded not guilty. He denied all 34 counts against him, including having had an alleged 2006 sexual encounter with Miss Daniels. A jury of 12 people living in Manhattan, 7 men and 5 women, have completed deliberations and reached their verdict in what was the first criminal case against a former US president. I just want to reiterate, Donald Trump has been found guilty of all 34 counts. And again, I'm just bringing this to you now. There are more guilty verdicts. The juror is continuing to read each charge. Counts 2 and 3. Former President Trump has been found guilty as well. So what we are seeing here is history in the making, actually. Former President Trump being found guilty of the first 3 charges against him. I am joined by my panel here, is political reporter at The Express, Christian Calgie, political commentator Suzanne Evans, and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larzer. I'll just reiterate some of the details as these are coming in thick and fast. The court heard from 22 witnesses over 6 weeks, including Stormy Daniels herself, whose alleged sexual encounter with Trump is at the centre of this case, and that is one of the charges that he has been found guilty of, paying hush money to her. Christian, I'll bring you in on this. I mean, this is another big development. Donald Trump has been found guilty of all 34 counts. OK, so that's the developing story here right now. We continue to hear the jury read the verdict for each charge. Count 4, count 5 were guilty, but it is now official. Donald Trump has apparently been found guilty of all 34 counts. It's the first time in history that a US president, former or current, has faced a criminal trial. Yes, Christian, this is, incredibly significant, isn't it?
It's massive, and it's the sort of thing that will completely derail anything that the politicians had planned in terms of news coverage tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, it's enormous. I don't think it's particularly helpful for American democracy, I'm afraid. Obviously, the law has done its job and justice must be dealt, but I'm afraid that there will inevitably be many people that consider this to be something of a stitch-up. And also, I think I'm right in saying that this doesn't actually affect his ability to run for the presidency. So we may end up with the sort of, incarcerated president.
Yeah, and if you are watching us on television, you are looking at live pictures there from that courthouse in New York, where the jury has just found former President Donald Trump guilty of all 34 charges. Suzanne, do you think this makes him more or less likely to become the next president of the United States?
I'm really quite concerned about this because there could be all kinds of fallout as a result of this. I just hope America tries to stay calm, but unfortunately it might not. This is potentially very serious division within American society. You've got a situation with a president who is both deeply unpopular and hugely popular, a very Marmite character. I think the fact is, as Christian said, so many people think this is a stitch-up. His supporters won't have any other thing except that it's a stitch-up. And
I'm going to now. I would like to apologise in advance. It is not the worst word in the world, but it is a swear word nonetheless. But I just, in fact, I can paraphrase. Actually, Donald Trump Jr. has just tweeted, "Such BS." So this is, I mean, look, obviously we'd expect this, wouldn't we?
Very American phrase.
This is the line from the Trump camp, isn't it, that this is absolute BS, Matthew. Do you think that will actually cut through with people?
Look, I mean, American politics is so divided at the moment that, as Christian and Suzanne have said, those who liked him are going to like him even more and think it's a conspiracy. Those who think that he's a threat to the future of America will think that even more. I think it will have an electoral impact. I think it will bring home to the small number of swing voters that still exist in the state, particularly women voters. I think it reminds them of some of the more unattractive aspects of his personality. So I think that will be the kind of electoral impact. But, this is a country that's on the knife edge, really.
Just reading some reports from people who are inside this Manhattan courtroom, Donald Trump is pursing his lips as each one of the jurors confirms that he's been found guilty. He turned his head, apparently, to look at each one of them as they confirmed. His lawyer appeared to be taking notes. So that's where we are. If you are just joining us, Donald Trump has been found guilty of all charges in a hush-money trial. After 5 weeks of testimony, the trial has now concluded. He's guilty of all counts. I suppose it is, well, Trump has apparently said this is a sad day for America. A sad day for America, according to former President Trump. You are looking at live shots out there. I mean, I'm not entirely sure whether we might see President Trump march out of there, if he's going to be allowed to march out of it. I'm not entirely sure exactly what the consequences of this could be.
Actually.
Yeah, indeed. Well, let's make sure you keep it GB News here, as that is the outside of that courthouse. Now, I suppose another point on this is, what does this mean for Nigel Farage, if he's supposed to be going out and campaigning for Trump?
Well, I'm sure he'll still be out there as long as the Donald isn't in shackles in some prison. But I'm almost speechless. I mean, it's such a ridiculous situation. I'm afraid it's a ridiculous choice for America, regardless how you cut it, to have two, ageing geriatrics who are basically not capable of basic bodily functions, let alone mental capacity these days.
That's a bit harsh.
I don't think so. God bless the United States, and I hope they get through it.
Yeah, well, look, apparently the jurors, just because of the layout of this courtroom, had to then file back past former President
It's in the grottiest courtroom they could find. It's, apparently it's absolutely horrible inside, because it's like, it's a very basic, I think they've deliberately put him in the kind of, he's certainly not got the executive suite of Manhattan courtrooms. I mean, it's a horrible thing to say, but this will, there'll be a sigh of relief in Labour HQ that if it's in time for the front pages, but certainly the news bulletins will all be leading on Trump and not on Diane Abbott.
I wonder what this means from a... So these are some of the supporters of Trump outside, I think. Yeah, never surrender, Trump 2024.
It's almost like a religious icon, isn't it?
And that's my next point. Does this actually move the dial? Everyone who liked Trump, well, I don't want to say everyone, I would imagine most people had already made their minds up about whether or not they thought that Trump was guilty or whether this was a stitch-up and a witch hunt, Suzanne.
Yeah, this is the way it works, isn't it? I mean, everybody said the same about Bill Clinton, the various allegations of sexual abuse that were levelled against him. Democrats didn't back down. His own wife leapt to his defence. It's so polarised, and the same thing is going to happen here as well. You can see you've got plenty of women there protesting.
This is live, by the way, in New York.
Trump.
Sorry to talk over you, Suzanne. I just want to emphasise that for our viewers.
Yeah.
This is live footage of outside that courtroom in New York, where Trump supporters wearing the MAGA hats. And apparently we are obsessed with that man's teeth. But, there we go. Hey, great teeth, those Trump supporters. Just emphasising there that was very much live outside the courtroom for you. We'll bring you some other shots. But if you are just joining us, that's the courtroom. Trump may well be walking out of that at some point. But, Christian, I mean, look, what does this mean now for America? Does it mean more years of Joe Biden? Does it mean, Trump able to campaign? We have to wait and see, don't we?
Well, I think, we all knew it was going to come down to a knife edge. And obviously lots of polls, marginal states, seem to be putting Donald Trump ahead at the moment. And I would imagine that most people who are saying they'd vote for Donald Trump had heard of both the trial and the specifics. So I'm not sure it will move the dial massive.
I think there's an issue about chaos. What it does, because it's very close at the moment. Trump's about one and a bit points ahead in the national polls, as you say, ahead in some of the swing states. I think what comes down to it is voters don't like chaos, and it just sort of adds. I was going to say
there's some movement at this door outside this courtroom here now, and it does look like there's going to be some activity. I wonder if any second now President Trump might walk out of there. We will bring this to you. So all eyes on that door right now. And here comes some very official-looking security guards. It does appear that there's some activity. I wonder if Trump will make a statement as well as he comes out and stands in front of the cameras. He's not one to back down, is he? So I would imagine that we might be hearing from former President Donald Trump potentially in the next couple of minutes. A flurry of activity around that courtroom door now.
There's no doubt, he will have prepared a statement whichever way it went. And I'm sure we'll get to hear that. Of course, what happens next depends very much on what sentence he gets, and I'm not quite sure when sentencing will take place. I understand that each of the counts he's been charged on has a penalty of up to 4 years in jail, but the judge might very well decide that that's not appropriate.
Yeah, no, indeed. What do you expect him to say, Matthew?
Well, I expect him to be as defiant as possible and to rage against the system, because, of course, that's his big shtick, isn't it? He's raging against what he called the swamp in Washington, but I think he includes the whole of the kind of governmental apparatus in that. And I think he needs to be careful, because as we saw in the Washington riots, what he says impacts on his supporters, and there'll be some very angry Trump supporters across the country tonight.
I was going to wonder, are his supporters about to turn up en masse to outside the courtroom, because it looked quite calm when the camera was zooming in on that fellow's teeth. But obviously it takes a few minutes for this news to feed through, and I imagine there'll be a lot of furious people,
and not just I think around the country where obviously, although he is a New Yorker by birth, it's not exactly Trump central in downtown Manhattan, but around the country, I think you might see some pretty unpleasant scenes.
Yeah, OK. So in this hush money case, the 34 charge, that is Trump. Trump has just left the courtroom there. I wonder if I can say, let's take the audio.
Are you worried about going to jail? This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. But the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA, and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end, and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now, from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one, with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.